Hello, my beautiful light beings, and welcome back to the Magic Exists podcast with Dani Margeaux. I have a very special guest. Her name is Marnie. Meet Marnie Maton. She is a graduate of the George Washington University. Marnie is an award-winning global marketing executive and author who writes about leadership, strategic planning, and empowerment. She knew she wanted to be a writer at the age of 13. In Vote for You, Take Your Seat at the Table, the pandemic inspired her to chronicle her journey as a woman and first-generation immigrant child from the suburbs of Los Angeles to the boardrooms in Austin, Santa Monica, and London, and all the places in between in search of her seat at the table. Outside of office hours, Marnie enjoys traveling the globe and uncovering new ways to connect with people over incredible meals. She currently lives in Los Angeles with her son and puppy, Rocky. Welcome, Marnie.
Thank you, Dani, for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning.
Yay, this is so exciting. Okay, so the first question I love to ask all my guests before we get into anything is, what is your strongest clair and how does that manifest in your daily life?
The strongest clair is around just a sense of knowing, just a sense of, does this feel right in that moment or does this feel really off? And so I use that knowing and that clarity when I'm with my own emotions and feelings and with those that are surrounding me.
Beautiful. And to go a little deeper, when you say you just have this feeling, is it like a visceral, like expanded feeling? For me, that's how that kind of comes through. Or is it just like this sense of like, oh, I trust that this is correct?
It's almost just like a
Mhm.
flash of insight where I'm just observing a situation and I'm seeing how things are unfolding, and then the truth becomes apparent in a flash for me.
That's so beautiful. Okay, so I'd love for you to share your story of how you started to where you're at now.
I'll start with saying you touched on it. I've always wanted to be a writer since I was 13 years old. And I think I spent just a lot of decades on that path where I was writing a small project on the side, but I couldn't find my way to finish it. Right. And now I know that that just wasn't the right minute for me to be finished with it. And the project that came forward, which is my book, Vote for You, Take Your Seat at the Table. It came to me. Thank you. It came to me during COVID. It came to me as like a flash of insight where I was climbing my way up the ladder and I felt like I wasn't getting to where I needed to go. And so I started writing about that journey of being female, woman of color, working in the tech space, and trying to progress. And that's what that story is. And also, like a flash, you came to me during that time too, Dani. So all these things that were supposed to be in place became in place. So my book is a reflection of that journey, climbing this wobbly ladder and then arriving there. And how I got there was really around thinking through a more holistic lifestyle. So I wanted to have a life that is balanced. And so I created what I call my top 10 non negotiables list of things I absolutely want in my life. And I went from being uncentered and disconnected to really focused and connected because I was really true in the life I'm living right now about the things that I absolutely want versus just the things that people expected me to do.
That's so beautiful. And I want to talk about how spirituality, how you found it and how it really influenced your life. Because in the book, if you're watching the YouTube, you can see it here, the video, the book I have here, how, medical intuitives and chiropractors and spiritual mentors held such like value and support in your life.
No, absolutely. I came to this more spiritual journey right on the verge of a divorce and like a severe burnout. And I had a wonderful mentor who said, "You've been trying it this way, all of these other things. Are you interested in trying an alternative?" And this beautiful mentor said, "I have a guy." It sounds crazy. It's not crazy. I won't use those words. But she said, he does Cairo, he does energy work. And she said, "I have a spot. He's got a wait list that's a year long, but I'm going to give you my spot because I was just right on the edge of a divorce and I didn't know how to go forward. And a couple weeks later, I go to his website. His name is Ken Klee. He's a well-known energy healer, professor, retired professor, retired attorney. He's been featured in the Wall Street Journal. Just this incredible human being and guide. And I went to his website and I was like, I'm signing this agreement for a lot of modalities and things. And I was very suspicious. But I was like, I'm just going to go with it. Like all these other things haven't been working. And so I visited him, and it is very much like going to a chiropractor. You're on a chiropractic table. He had an assistant. And, I can see now, because I do study energy healing with him, just like how critical of a moment that was, which was, releasing to something bigger. Right. And then learning a new modality and a new way to think. And so that's how it started. It started just literally like in deep crisis. And after 2 energy sessions with him, alignment sessions, he and I spoke and I said, hey, I'd like to see you again. And he said, no, you actually have to start coming to like my seated meditation class, which was a seated group that met twice a week in person right before COVID. It's since gone online. So they're called satsangs, but it's really created for me very deep rooted meditation practice, which is actually, I think, the building blocks to everything that supports me and fuels me now.
I love that. And so I have seen this energy medical intuitive master. He is amazing. And so anyone who is more spiritual and wants to know how he actually does his work, he works with the auric field and more in the astral body than in the astral realm. So like he can see where the trauma is occurring in any layer within the 7 layers of your auric field, see if it's a past life, see if it's something that happened here in this lifetime, and heal it like instantaneously. Or if it's not meant for your journey yet, reveal to you what needs to be done in order to move through it. And for you, it was like a little bit more long term, like, okay, you need to go to these, satsang meditations. And I've been also now recently studying from him. We've been going to a couple of his medical intuitive classes in the Los Angeles area. He is so amazing. And I'm so grateful for you. So Marnie and I met during the pandemic and everything was shut down. We were living in Manhattan Beach, a couple steps from the ocean. It was literally a manifested energy and community. It was so beautiful. But you had this like group of people, and your mentor had this group of medical healers that she kind of like shared with you, and there was 3 of them. And I feel like I was so divinely guided to meet you because the first was Liliana, who's also in Santa Monica, the medium, who is unlike any medium I have ever experienced, who really takes the energy on viscerally and like trans channels everything, energetic movements and stuff. And that really helped lead me into starting and opening spirituality and stepping into the Reiki master that I am now. Dr. Kubi, with the second chiropractor that you recommended, who helped me connect the dots between the physical and the energetic body. And then now Ken Klee, who I've recently been visiting to really help expand my awareness around healing my body, which has been so wonderful. And so I have a question for you. You were a global CMO, really running the world, and always so inspiring to me. How are you able to infuse these moments of like ritual and spirituality? Because when I first met you, I was really inspired by your spiritual practice of really meditating and making time for yourself. And now I know it's, translated into this wonderful book that, of what really aligns you every day. So how are you able to make room and space through the chaos of the corporate world?
Well, I think that I was a global CMO. Now I'm a chief marketing officer for a US-based healthcare company. And that was a part of really filtering my life into something that is more focused and manageable, that really makes me excited because I know I'm being of service to, hundreds of thousands of children and family to get them access to healthcare. And so I think that in terms of how do I navigate just being in this corporate world, which is very different from being in a spiritual world, is it's a lot of pausing, right? It's a lot of just remembering to rest, because you're going to be at a steady pace and beat all the time when I'm in that other space. And I think trying to bring that presence, right, and that focus full self into both modalities, right? Because I think that there's so much distraction. There's a push notification happening. You're getting a text message. And so I think just bringing more presence helps myself and the team members around me, because there's an openness. And I think also I've learned so much wisdom from these spiritual guides, masters. It's really a lesson in knowing that things are going to unfold exactly as they should, and making sure that you can do all those things in advance, and then knowing, right? And having that belief. And I think that is ultimately, in my corporate world, a more of a positivity that I didn't have before, that I can bring to the table.
That's so beautiful. And one thing that's coming through right now is like developing that sense of self-trust and patience to the universe. Like, I feel like this has been a big thing in coming up for me, at least, which is like surrendering control to the timeline of the universe. Like, we are so connected now where it's like, we know what's going to come. We know what we're manifesting. We know what we're bringing forward. We know how our life is going to play out. Yeah, it's like, as a human in the 3D, things are happening maybe a little slower than maybe we would anticipate. And so really, like, for me, it's been releasing that control of how things should happen timeline wise, and surrendering to the universe, and knowing that the universe knows more than us. Because like when I control things, it's as if I'm taking like that divine knowing that this is supposedly somehow better than what the universe has for me.
I think you hit it. I mean, the patience is something that you have to move into acceptance with, and you have to nurture, and you have to let things lie. And I think that that's how all of these practices have helped, because in another world, I would have just like forced it, right? Like, this is exactly how this needs to be. And that worked. Like, I was able to get all these promotions and all these rewards, but on the other side of it, I was burnt out. So even now, it's there's so many things that I want to do, so many things I am doing, and I actually have to say, hey, the biggest thing for spirituality is learning to rest, is learning to take that pause, and learning to take meditative walks. And then I come back, actually, I say that I'm walking all the time because I'm solving problems all the time. Or I'm coming to an understanding of something that I couldn't come to an understanding in like a space, right? So that's I think how bringing in all of that spirit and all of that like belief and faith is really guided.
Yeah, it helps you find clarity, because let's say you're at your desk all day and you're solving all the problems all day, and then you can't solve the same problems with the mind that you came in with, right? I think that's like a quote from someone. And so like when you give yourself space, you are able to get those downloads, especially living by the beach, and like being in your joy, are able to have that clarity through that pause.
Absolutely. And the expansion. It's like pause and expansion seem counterintuitive, but that pause gives the expansion that you've been trying to attain. It just presents itself.
I love that. And for me, it's more subtle, and you do have to train yourself. And like you said, it feels counterintuitive, but it's not.
Not.
And this is even something so simple, but like I've been thinking about Christmas gifts, and it's literally Christmas is next week. But I think when this is going to come out, it'll be like first week of January. But when I was thinking of gifts, I was like, okay, I'm in my thinking brain. I'm going to think, I'm on the Amazon, I'm on all the sites. Like, what am I going to get my, friends? And then when I finally was like, you know what, let me just meditate. Actually, let's take a second, not do anything. Let me just be in my energy. Oh my goodness, I bought everyone's gifts within like 30 minutes. It was like, oh, it was so easy. But like, you're right. Like when you pause and you're still, instead of forcing oh, I'm going to find something. Like, no, wait, actually, let me just sit with that energy. And it comes. You are so divinely supported and guided by your spirit guides at every moment. And you can utilize this not just in the spiritual world, but like you were saying, like in daily life, in work, in the corporate world.
Absolutely. I think just presence. I was talking to someone recently and they were just saying that they're from Argentina. And they said, what's so different about being in the US versus being abroad is when he's home. Like he said, it feels like Friday night when it's Friday night. You see people on the street. They're just like ready for the weekend. And he's like, here in the neighborhood he lives in, he's like, every day looks the same. You don't know, like there's no transition, right? Or the restaurants, people are heads down on their phones. There's not a lot of like talk and, chatter. And those are the things. So I think it's that presence that's really important for all of us.
That's so interesting because, like, culturally, different cultures outside the US have different systems. Like, for example, Spain or France has like a siesta where people literally like don't work in the middle of the day, which I feel like is something I've been implementing with like moving into my divine feminine space, giving myself that grace to take a couple hours in the day to rest. But then sometimes I'll work super late, and it's like really making my own schedule with that.
And also too, it's a knowing when. That's what makes people like I'm my prime in creativity very early. So 6 in the morning, I start an activity. And then I get through my day and then I have a lot of heads down time after 4. I'm very highly productive in this like particular window between 4 and 6. So you need to know your own rhythms too to be effective.
And how would you say someone who maybe is still on that edge of burnout and hasn't taken that space or doesn't meditate, how would they be able to find out how, like, when they are the most productive?
I mean, I think that they have to like keep a record a little bit, like very simple, like a post-it note in a week and just see like, hey, where am I shining or where am I really like low energy and what needs to be true for me to like turn on. Like right before I came onto this call and to see you, I said, I'm going to just do like a real fast, just neighborhood reset to like come into this space as whole as I can be. And so I think it's tracking and then identifying and then coming up with like a plan that hopefully meets it.
I love that. And I want to talk a little bit about like releasing all like your thoughts onto paper. Like when you're saying like write down, keep a track, like if you're just keeping it in your mind, what I've noticed for myself and what's helped me connect to my channel more divinely and more abundantly is not storing everything in my mind and writing it out. And so now I have notebooks literally everywhere.
Yeah.
And if any download comes through, any thought, any idea, I write it down.
Yeah.
And so that I'm free, or else I'm in my mind thinking consistently and then I forget it. And then it's like, oh, this is just like a waste of space, like energy. And so now I'm like, I write it down. I know I'm free. I don't have to be overthinking. I don't forget anything because I'm free to be in that space, that openness.
Absolutely. And I think that the writing it down, I start my morning every morning. There's a book, it's called The Artist's Way, and they're called morning pages. And as soon as you get up, you just write. You're supposed to write 3 pages. It depends on the day. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2, but it's the first thing I do. And I just literally am like, this morning I wrote about dreams, but sometimes I'm writing about what's coming ahead. So every morning I do that. And a part of the Artist's Way is also going on dates with yourself, like doing things that you absolutely love on your own so that you can rekindle the things that really bring you joy. So I start my everyday. Before I start the pages, I start with a meditation. And then I move into these morning pages. And then I do some gratitude, which is also writing down things that I'm very grateful and, that I love and things that I would love to see like happen within the day. And so I was just contemplating, what do I do with all these notebooks? They're just like everywhere. So I was like, I don't know, should I? Anyway, so that has not resolved itself for me yet, Dani, but
That is something that's been coming up in my field recently. Like I just started journaling in like 2019, so I feel like I don't have as many books or notebooks, but there are definitely like the channeled notebooks, and then there's just like the to-do list notebooks. So I'm like, I'm trying to separate that and have some kind of system so I can like toss the planning ones and then keep the divine wisdom ones.
That's, I think, very good. I will say that I do have a beautiful book that I do every year. This is like the time and the season. It's called the Ink and Volt like yearly planner. And there's sort of a little bit of manifesting at the top. Like, what do you want to start doing, stop doing? How do you see the year unfolding? What's a view of yourself in 3 or 5 years? And then it keeps you tracking throughout. So I use that for like what I'll call to do. And it's one place that all my to-dos are, right? For my passion project, for writing, for family activities for my son. And so that's helpful. And then I have all of these different kinds of notebooks. I'll send that to you just for, they all look the same. So I kind of signal to myself how to use them.
I love it. So I want to talk a little bit about community and sisterhood and friendship and how we evolve maybe with the same people or how we let people go. And so Marnie and I, we met through the pandemic. We were neighbors, and it was such a beautiful, beautiful friendship of, connection and depth. And I'm so grateful, for you in for so many aspects of my life. And I feel like we've been able to expand together and grow into these like really embodied higher self beings, which has been so beautiful. But I want to talk a little bit about maybe outgrowing friendships and even I guess connecting. And so so just to start, like we met just randomly walking down the street. I had like a little glass of wine. I had just gone to watch sunset. And I think it was like right in the beginning of pandemic, you had made yourself like a little
martini. And I was standing with a giant, like, industrial size roll of toilet paper because toilet paper was scarce. I was in my pajamas.
And I was like, hi, you look fun. We ended up talking for like, I think 2 hours. I ended up getting a couple books from you. I read them in like a day. And I was like, after that, we would just see each other on the street all the time and just talk. And then that, really flourished, which was so beautiful. But I think the foundation of a good friendship, which I think is really what I meant to bring into this lifetime, is mutual respect, love unconditionally, and without judgment. And I recently started this like book club, and they're wonderful women, wonderful women. But I have now since moved from the beach, and I'm in Glendale. And I went to my last meeting last week, and I realized like I'm done with this group. Like it's no longer aligned with me. Yeah. And so I was talking to Chelsea, which, my other friend, about this. And she's like, that's your power. You bring people together. And even if you're not aligned, you take yourself out and people are still connected. And I was like, wow, I never like thought of it that way. But along my spiritual journey, I have met a lot of people. And what I have noticed is the people who are dedicated to the work within themselves are the ones that sometimes are the most inspiring. It's that openness, that trust within self. It's like foundational work needs to be done, right, within yourself before you can really give yourself to someone else. Because if, as a friend, you have to trust that what they say is meant from a beautiful heart-centered place, even if it might be said in a way that's hurtful to you. And when you are triggered or hurt by something said by the other person, you have to trust that that is something that you need to find within you to work through and not be like, you did this to me. It's more like, this was said to me from a place of love, but it's hurting me. What is this? What is it activating within me? And what do I need to work through? And what needs to be revealed in order for me to feel at peace with what was said? And what I have noticed is the people that I have connected with the deepest are the ones that are open to having these vulnerable conversations about life and self and all the things.
Yes.
How do you navigate friends in the workplace or even past friends? Like, how do you navigate being someone who is on the journey of personal development and embodying your higher self? And how do you handle people who are maybe bringing you down or don't have the best energy? How do you navigate that, even detecting it, like detecting that they don't have good energy?
Sure. I mean, I think that one thing that I've been really trying to open my heart to is really deep listening, like really deep listening, and some additional work when you talk about the judgment is the listening also comes without necessarily an opinion expressed from me on what's being said. It's just the listening because they want to be talking, right? And I have a healthy dose of wanting to control things. I was just having a conversation with my son, and he was complaining about a classmate who was always complaining about homework, and I was like, she's not our problem. Like, just we gotta let her be and let her evolve and let her have her path, and we need to keep that focus on ourselves. And I think that if I'm confronted with something, I was confronted with something in a negotiation that I didn't think was going to go my way from like a work perspective, and I had to say, okay, did I do like the best that I could in this moment in time? Was it as beneficial as it could be for them, as us, and the business? Like, because I'm coming with empathy at it. And did I communicate it like very clearly? And I did, right? And then when there was still like a push more, I took the pause on it. And it was hard. I was like clinching, right? And I think that that might be a learned behavior that I had in other things. But I was like, I've said all of the things that I need to say at this point. This has got to resolve itself, right? And I have been as clear and came to it open hearted. But initial reaction, I was like pissed about it, right? And so I like talked myself through all of those things, and in the end, the outcome came out the way that was good for everyone. So that was really beautiful. But there were a lot of weeks where I started like letting it kind of get to me. And I had to really, again, take that pause and know and keep that knowing to know that it was going to unfold for them and for us exactly as it was supposed to unfold. So I think that having that belief and, talking about friends that you outgrow, or it's so seasonal, right? And what I have seen too is that I'm growing every single day. So a month ago, I might have thought I've outgrown these childhood friends. And then something presents itself. And then I realize, no, actually, I haven't. And so a willingness to also be open to what might present itself again versus I think in the past I would have been like, this is a hard cleave. This door is shut. Never speak to me again, or I'm never going to speak to you again. And I think that's actually like the difference is the openness to say, this might have lived a season, but there could be something down the road eventually, even if feelings are hurt or it's misaligned.
I love that. You touched on a couple things. The first one was so beautiful about that listening and not having like expectations of what someone else's journey is like meant to be.
Right.
Like, just because you had an experience and then now maybe a friend is having a similar experience and they're not acting the same way as you, like that is okay. And just offering them a listening ear, like you said, with boundaries, of course, but like with
Right.
and compassion,
That's
and not
right.
judging them and placing your own expectations on what their journey should look like, I think is really, really valuable and a powerful thing. And what you touched about like friendship and how, you can go through one season and be like, oh yeah, like they're not aligned for me anymore. And then go through another, season and be like, oh wow, like wait, they were really there for me, or something, really connected me with them again. And I agree with that. And I want to kind of take it a step further and be like, it's a choice that we've made, I think, to allow people to be in our lives. And now that we have chosen it, we've accepted them for who they are. And even if our seasons don't always align, it's navigating the friendship around that. So let's say like you're really connected this season, beautiful, embrace it. And then next season you're expanding and maybe they are, and that's okay. and just set your boundaries, be able to navigate it to the depths of where they are. And if you need that space, that's okay. But I think I agree. I used to cut people out very quickly. Like, oh, you're not good. Bye. Like, but now it's like this, I think because I've found that love and forgiveness for myself. And I know I make mistakes, that I am willing and more open to giving that forgiveness and compassion and love to other people. And I think that's just like absolutely so beautiful.
No, absolutely. And I do think friendships, like, you have such the gift of so much community. And I even write about just loneliness in the US, they say, is like an epidemic right now, according to the Surgeon General. And so reaching out and being connected to a lot of people, like we have our beautiful Manhattan Beach, we called ourselves the Gulf Street Girls, right? Like we have that beautiful community. And it's been like a concerted focus to maintain that community of people that are geographically close or not close. And then also, you said the word boundaries with older relationships that I might be tempted to cycle out of. I have to actually pause there and say, there's actually, we have been together and supporting one another for so long. And maybe the way we're together can change, but I can also say, hey, I'm available for this. Maybe it's not a 3-day weekend. And so those are the things too about also being honest with myself and what really is in alignment for me. And then I'm bringing a better self there versus a resentful person.
That's so true. Yeah, creating your boundaries of what you are available for so that you're coming in already from a place of like, yeah, enjoyment and joy.
And connecting, as you said, you're this person that's fusing everyone together. And so if you're not, for me, if I'm not in that alignment, then what am I? I'm actually like creating the fission, the friction.
So I want to talk a little bit that we covered about boundaries, but like now energetic boundaries to maybe coworkers. I know you have like your beautiful pendant on your necklace right now, which is like a transmuter of energy. And I wore the earring you got me yesterday. It was beautiful. I loved it, which if you're not on the YouTube video, it's just a pendant that you were able to go with Ken Klee with and activate, in which if there's any negative energy that comes through, it's being funneled through and like being transmuted to the highest vibration. And you can do this with any jewelry. But for me, what I've noticed with energy and doing this work like full time now, and so I want to hear your perspective about it as well now, still being in the corporate, but navigating energies that aren't mine and how I'm able to know when someone isn't aligned. And so for me, I have done a lot of somatic work where it's this, it started out with like a visceral feeling of contraction. If there's someone I'm not a fan of, I'll usually go inward right away. And whether my mind understands that or not, it's like my body is like, doesn't want to be next to that person. And this has happened with a lot of instances with friends of friends who like, they had a friend and I'd just be like, just don't like that person. But maybe it wasn't articulated because I didn't know what was feeling. And then they would like betray that other person and I'd feel so bad. And I'm like, oh, wow, my intuition was correct. Like that person had ill will or whatever, that was. And then sometimes it's just like people's energies are just not your level. And that just might be, they're in their anger, they're in their resentment, they're in their sadness. Like, and that's okay too. But now I know like when I am aligned to someone, I feel that expansiveness in my body. And it's like I'm in a flow state more. I'm able to communicate more clearly. I am able to access that joy and that openness and compassion and forgiveness and love more openly. And so for me, that's how I know that I am with someone who is aligned with my energy. And how I navigate that, honestly, is just calling in Archangel Michael or doing a little Reiki bubble before I leave the house. And I really set those protections in place so that when I'm navigating all day, I can be in my own soul frequency.
No, I mean, that's beautiful. And I think similarly, I took a workshop, which is what you're touching on, where you can make little objects, little shields or support, for example, and you can put a positive energy or vibration into them. And so I wear these things as a part of that. And so I gifted for you. I gifted for your birthday something, and then I put a little bit of that energy. So I'm glad to see that you are experiencing it. But yes, I think that each day as a part of my meditative practice, I think they're called like Beyonder 7. They're like empowerments as well, around empowerment of thinking and empowerment of thought and truth, and setting up, to your point, what these shields might be. But as I am a continuous student and not a master of these things, when we do put these shields in place, the recommendation from my instructor is to put something with love on it, so that when it comes back, they feel that going towards them, versus a shield that is hefty with negative.
Reflects back their own negative energy. You're putting love so that when it bounces back, it's love. I love that. And I'm going to touch a little bit on that. When in my Reiki courses, when I first got taught, they were like, oh yeah, you can put a terracotta shell around you, and every time the energy comes, it'll just be absorbed in the terracotta, and then it'll break when it gets too heavy. But it was funny because my master was like, oh, don't do a disco ball unless you like really don't like that person, because then that energy will bounce back and it'll be a mirror to them, and then they'll be like receiving their own like negative energy, and it's very disturbing.
Yeah, it feels, it's like a spit of a boomerang back. So I do that as a part of my practice in the morning. And I think that if you have that flash of intuition and you're feeling like, wow, this person is really unhappy, deeply unhappy, or they're so sad, and you're like, is sad and even for myself, I had to say, is sad and unhappy the same thing? And it's like, no, actually they're different things, right? And so I think when you have that awareness, then you can come maybe softly, or you can tailor how you might talk to them, right? Because otherwise you just kind of go through the world. You can be like a robot, but you could also like try to meet people where they are. And so I do try to do that. But at the same time, you're right. Like some things are unaligned. And so some things are like a firm space and a firm decision to say, yeah, it's okay. Like a lot of the gift that I've had the last few years is getting time to spend on my own and getting to know myself, and being comfortable with that. Because as I grew up, there was always like a pressure to be out, to be seen, to be constant, right? And so a lot of the current state is being okay with like having a quiet day, which is very hard to unlearn after decades of being in a different way.
I want to two things you said that I absolutely loved. So the boundaries thing with people who are unaligned or, negative energy. I do want to say though, as a leader of light myself, and that is like my purpose I'm moving into, I am playing with and integrating the concept of like offering people unconditional love no matter what. But I can say it's hard when you're still in that like learning phase of your own even energy. And so I will say like, yes, stick your own boundaries, and it's very important. And I think I'm finally at that place where I'm moving into that like master role, where it's like, I do have days where I'm like, I have so much compassion and love to give. I'm going to try to give it to a lot of people. And you're right. That doesn't mean like they're going to be in your life forever. It could just be like someone at the grocery store who is in their sadness or in their, unhappiness, and like be able to bring that light even for like a glimpse. Not that I'm like, oh, I'm special, I'm bringing people light, but like my intention is like,
Lift.
yes. And just like, yeah, it's all about intention. It's just bringing more love and light to this planet through compassion. But what you mentioned about like being by yourself, that is one of the biggest pivotal moments in which I was able to like expand my spiritual practice and personal awakening journey, is by being by myself. And that was something I felt called to very early on. Like I feel like in my 20s, I always tested the boundaries. Like I was never alone either. Like I lived in a family where like I had never had my own room, so like I didn't know what that was like. When I was always like chaperoned, or like I didn't really have a chance to really be, I guess you could say, free or test that freedom out until college. And even then it was like, oh, I get to hang out with my friends all the time. Let me text who's available. And I was like, from friend to friend to friend to friend. It was like never like me go sit and eat at the cafeteria alone, which I did sometimes. But that was the first taste of like, oh, I can eat by myself at a cafeteria, like little 18-year-old me, like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. I really don't like it. I feel like people are watching me. I don't know what to do. And like, I had a little BlackBerry then. It's not like I had a phone that had like connection to like the internet. So like I would bring a book or something, but that was the first like little glimpse of like, oh, I can be by myself. And now, I mean, now at this place, I love being by myself. Like sometimes I prefer it. It's like so fun. Like I love I love myself. No, but no, really, an honest truth. Like I feel like my connection to God and the divine is like I can do so much by myself. Like there's so much I could do and learn. There's so many books. Like there's so much beauty in being by yourself. But I do believe, we are relational beings, and having that integration of alone time, but also connection to others is very powerful and expansive.
No, absolutely. And I think that just being, when I got married, there was a table of 8 people and everybody said, how do you know Marnie? And they were like, oh, I'm her roommate. And I had never lived alone until like really late in life. And so there was always that constant text people, be somewhere, have 3 engagements on one weekend. And it's really taken a lot of like discipline and really self-care, really, to say to myself, okay, I got invited, first world problem, to 3 Christmas parties. And in another time, all on the same day, I would have gone to all 3. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going, right? Because that's about pleasing other people. I committed to one much earlier. That was the one I was going to go to. And I was really going to just be present and enjoy that versus just manically being in a lot of places. And I think for me, that's been the bigger shift.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, like more intentional with our time and the people like we're wanting to really surround ourselves with. Because yes, I'm sure you love all those people from all those Christmas parties.
I do love all of them. It was really like, I was like, I think I could do it. And then I'm like, I can't do this. We start at the same time. One's at 5, 2 are at 5, one's at 7. I'm like, this isn't good. So yeah. I think so.
Yeah. And I think, that FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. I had that so severely. Like I probably was the most severe having that issue like in my 20s. And now it's like a fear of like going.
A going person. Going person.
So I am extrovert, but I'm a spiritual introvert. So I think like when I'm not fully embodied or I'm integrating something, which I feel like has been like the last 3 years, like Dark Nights of Soul and then expansion and then like integrating, I do find it very challenging to like connect with people in groups. I do find it like hard to relate to maybe group settings because I feel like they are more not superficial, like, but like if you have your core group there and then there's like extra people, right? And you're like, I don't really know those extra people. Like, how do I hold a conversation that isn't talking about like spirituality and aliens and I don't know, like your birth chart and like Akashic records? But that's something I'm still integrating.
I think you'll see the ones that like want to hear the message. So you'll find them in the broader.
That's true. I do think every person is divinely connected to you. Like every person you meet, there's a divine reason. And I want to talk about soul contracts, like just real quick, because I feel like people think like, oh, I'm trying to meet my soulmate. And it's like this one person in your lifetime. But actually, like every single person in your life, even like maybe the taxi driver that drove you, wherever, like you were meant to get a little frequency of their conversation that's like maybe meant to give you like this little insight that's meant to like be a bowling ball for like this thought process that you're meant to have. And it's like little moments like that can also be like soul contracts. And so it's just really allowing and surrendering, like we talked about earlier, to all that is.
That's right. All of the, what is it? Nothing is a coincidence. So all of these people or things that come into your path are really supposed to be, right? And I ask myself, when you talk about soul contract, what's the lesson I'm supposed to learn here, right? Like what, like very consciously, what was it today? And it could be as simple as, the Uber driver talking about crypto, or it could be something like a relationship, or a friendship, right? But whenever I have a minute, then I realize, okay, there was a lesson there that needed to be revealed for me. And so now I know how to handle that situation or a similar situation for the next one.
That is such a powerful question. And if you guys want to get Marnie's book, Vote for You, Take a Seat at the Table. She has so many wonderful, profound, like journaling questions to really get to the root of all these, non-negotiables. But that question about what lesson am I meant to be learning is so powerful. And I'm reading a book called Brita by Paulo Coelho. He's the one who wrote The Alchemist. And he says this beautiful thing about, actually, this might be Viktor Frankl from The Man's Search for Meaning. Anyways, one of the books, I'm reading them both at the same time. It's about you have no choice in the experiences that are coming up in your life, but you do have the freedom and choice of how you're going to react to it. And now that I'm thinking about this is Viktor Frankl, and he was in Auschwitz, and he was like, he talks about the people who lived, and they all had the same experiences in this camp. And it's very, very sad, but he's like, he's on the other side. He lived. I mean, he's since passed, but it's really profound. And that's true. It's like our choice of how we want to perceive every situation is so profound.
I mean, I think that it's just like the conversation I was having with my son about focusing on other people and things that are out of your control versus keeping the focus on you. And right, like because he was saying, why does she just complain all the time? And it's like, this is a non-judgmental heart, but you're complaining about her. I did not say that.
Oh!
And I just said, she's on her own path, and she can have her own path, and you're on your own path. So we just need to let her. And you need to focus on your own homework and do your own thing, because you don't get me wrong, you want to control, can you? But that's a part of the grip that I think can't serve. And
that's so beautiful.
Working with my son, I also want to make sure I'm listening to him so he feels heard.
I love how you are with him. You are like the best mom. I'm like learning so much. But back to the question of like, what is my lesson? And to really infuse that in everything you do. And that's been a really big perspective shift for me. Like, what am I getting? Like, I'm getting something from this experience, even if it wasn't a great experience. And like, what was I meant to really receive here? And what was I meant to learn? Because now that will never happen again, because I'm a different person. Mm-hmm. And even if you had to experience it and it wasn't that good, or you had to experience it so you know what you don't want, sometimes that happens and it's not the best, but it's beautiful, because then you will never be or make that mistake again, because you really dove deep to see what the lesson was, to really kind of evolve higher than that pattern that might be kind of showing itself to you.
That's right. I think you're right. Just taking that introspection, exactly, right? And understanding a lesson had to be learned, even if it hurt, or maybe it was extremely devastating, or it was very small. I do think that I often hear people say, I don't want this, I don't want that. And it could be at work or in love. I don't want all of these things. But oftentimes, a lot of the training I've done is really thinking about, what is it that I want? Because then you're bringing in that positivity versus all of that negativity, and then the expansion is there, right? When you bring in that openness. And that has been, I think, for me, the bigger shift, because before I was maybe more focused on title or label, for example. And so that's where that introspection is so important.
That's so true, because when you focus on the thing that you don't want, oftentimes you're attracting that thing for two reasons. From the Akashic Records, I've seen this often, like someone who's like, I really want kids, but I don't know if I'm going to have them because I can't like find my partner, or like maybe we can't have kids. And like the fear around that often like actually manifests that. Obviously it's more deeper with like contracts and stuff. And like, that's just like an example. But when you're focusing your energy on resisting that thing that you don't want, oftentimes you're attracting it. And the second reason is like, because actually you're meant to attract that so that you can understand that the worst case scenario of having that still means you're okay.
That's right. I mean, that's so true. I think that the lessons I have learned is I can go through many, many, many things, and there are still many chapters ahead. And so I am grateful for the things that were not, the things that maybe I would have wanted to have happen, but I have this ability now to say to myself, okay, we talked about it yesterday. Like, what do I want to call in? Right? What am I calling in? And that is different than how I might have been thinking when I was like in my 30s, where it was mostly like, what don't I want to lose?
And that's like such a shift from like that fear energy or that ego energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's like you're in that love energy and that abundance energy. And it's really like reprogramming ourselves, our habits, our resourcing, our thoughts
That's right.
to be in that space. And like, and now I see you and you're like so grounded. And I mean, I didn't know you in your 30s, but like, yeah, I mean, you're so grounded now and peaceful and harmonious. All right, Marnie. Well, so where can anyone find you if they are wanting to maybe get your book or find you on your website?
You can find my book, Vote for You, Take Your Seat at the Table, at Amazon. So just search for that name, Vote for You, and you will find me. And then also at my website, www.marniematon.com.
Beautiful. And Marnie, are there any last just tidbits of inspiration that want to come through for the collective?
I mean, I think it's this connectedness and leaning into the joy of these just wonderful connections with people that bring themselves to you. I think that both of us being on our own spiritual journeys and on our own business entrepreneurial enterprises, and still just having time for seeing happy hours and time together and bringing in more community with us along the way is it's the whole thing, right? So I'm glad we were
Wonderful.
together today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's been such a joy. Thank you so much. And until next time.
Until next time, thank you.